There are towns in America where time doesn't disappear. It settles. It settles into front porches worn smooth by generations of elbows, into diner booths that remember first dates and last goodbyes, into cornfields that rise and fall with the seasons, patient and faithful. Maple Ridge, Iowa was one of those towns. If you blinked while driving through, you might miss it. But if you stayed, it stayed with you. Maple Ridge had one main street, 2 traffic lights, only one of which worked consistently, and a high school football stadium that filled up every Friday night like it was the center of the universe. In this town, football wasn't just a game. It was a shared language. And nobody spoke it better than Ethan Walker. By 17, Ethan had already grown into the kind of young man folks like to claim as one of ours. Broad shoulders, respectful manners, and a smile that could calm even the crankiest referee. But what people loved most about Ethan wasn't how far he could throw a football. It was where he came from. The Walker home sat just outside town, framed by old oak trees and the smell of fresh-cut grass. Inside, life was loud. Linda Walker, Ethan's mother, believed food solved most problems. If you were sad, she fed you. If you were happy, she fed you more. Tom Walker, Ethan's father, ran a farm supply business that had grown steadily over the years. He was practical, steady, and proud. The kind of man who shook your hand like he meant it. And then there was George Walker. George had been the backbone of the family long before Ethan was born. A widower of 10 years, he still wore his late wife Margaret's wedding band on a chain around his neck. George liked early mornings, black coffee, and sitting on the porch watching the sun rise like it still owed him something. He loved his grandson quietly. The deepest kind of love. George, boy's got talent, sure. But what matters is what he does when nobody's watching. On the other side of Maple Ridge, closer to the tree line, stood a small white house with blue shutters that needed repainting. That was home to Clara May Bennett and her grandmother, Evelyn Bennett. Clara May didn't arrive in this world with ease. At just 3 years old, she lost both parents in a car accident on a rain-soaked highway outside Des Moines. From that moment on, Evelyn became everything. Mother, father, protector, teacher. Evelyn was a woman shaped by loss, but not broken by it. She wore her silver hair pulled back neat, her dresses modest, and her strength quietly. The kind that didn't need announcing. We don't get to choose what happens, sweetheart. But we do get to choose who we become afterward. Clara May learned early how to be gentle and strong. The Maple Ridge Fall Fair came every October like clockwork. There were fried pies, tractor pulls, a Ferris wheel that creaked ominously, and a pie contest that Evelyn Bennett had won more times than anyone could remember. That was where Ethan Walker officially met Clara May Bennett. She was sitting at a picnic table, sketchbook open, pencil moving fast as she drew the Ferris wheel against the sunset. Ethan, fresh from winning a football toss booth prize, stopped short. You drawing the ride or the people? The feeling. That stopped him. He sat down anyway. From that night on, Maple Ridge started noticing something. They walked home together. They studied together. They sat in silence together, a rare skill for teenagers. Their love wasn't loud. It was shared milkshakes at the diner, notes passed in class, hand-holding under Friday night lights. Ethan dreamed of football beyond Maple Ridge, stadiums, scholarships, college glory. Clara May dreamed of fashion, New York runways, fabrics, designs she sketched late at night by lamplight. 2 dreams, both big. 2 hearts, still small town. Sometimes, sitting on the hood of Ethan's truck, Clara would point at the stars. "You ever think this town is too small for what we're becoming?" Ethan, after a pause. "I think it's just big enough to remind us who we are." Senior year arrived faster than anyone expected, and with it came envelopes. Ethan's letter arrived first. A college football scholarship. Out of state. A real chance. The house erupted. Linda cried. Tom slapped Ethan on the back. George smiled quietly from the corner. Then Clara May's email arrived. An internship opportunity with one of the biggest fashion brands in New York City. Evelyn sat down slowly. Not because she wasn't proud, but because she knew what distance costs. That night, Ethan and Clara May sat under the stars, the town quiet behind them. "New York is really far." "So is Ohio." They laughed. Then they grew quiet. "Promise me something." "What?" "That we don't let the world decide for us." She reached for his hand. "I promise." The stars bore witness, but none of them knew how hard that promise would be to keep. People like to say distance makes the heart grow fonder. But what they don't say, what they forget to mention, is how loud distance can be. It hums in the background, buzzes through unanswered calls, echoes in rooms that once felt full. And for Ethan Walker and Clara May Bennett, distance arrived all at once. Ohio felt bigger than Ethan expected. The stadium was massive. The playbook was thicker. The expectations were relentless. His first morning practice started before sunrise. "Walker, you think talent alone earns you a spot? Move!" By the end of the week, Ethan's body ached in places he didn't know existed. Still, he called Clara every night. At first, "You should see this place, Clara. It's unreal." "I wish I could." He missed Maple Ridge. He missed her laugh. He missed the quiet. But most of all, he missed being known. Here, he was just another name on a jersey. New York City didn't wait for anyone. The subway roared. The sidewalks pushed. The buildings blocked the sky. Clara May's internship office sat high above the street, glass walls and sharp edges everywhere. The kind of place where people spoke fast and expected you to keep up. Her first day, she spilled coffee on a sample dress. "Try not to do that again." She didn't cry. She stayed late. She learned names. She listened more than she spoke. At night, she returned to a tiny apartment with thin walls and city noise that never stopped. She called Ethan. Sometimes he answered right away. Sometimes he didn't. Weeks passed. Schedules clashed. Time zones interfered. Ethan fell asleep early after practice. Clara worked late nights steaming garments and running errands. One evening, Clara sat on her bed, phone in hand. No reply. She told herself he was busy. She told herself not to worry. Still, it hurt. Back in Ohio, Ethan stared at his phone after a grueling practice. He saw 3 missed calls. Too late. I'll call tomorrow. Tomorrow came with meetings, drills, and exhaustion. Distance didn't shout. It whispered doubts. Back in Maple Ridge, The Bennett house changed. The kettle boiled for one. The radio played to empty rooms. Evelyn Bennett folded Clara's laundry out of habit, then stopped halfway through, realizing there was no reason to rush. She sat down slowly. Loneliness doesn't arrive dramatically. It settles in like dust. That afternoon, there was a knock on the door.
Just a moment.
She opened it to find George Walker, hat in hand. Tom said you might need help with that loose porch step. Evelyn smiled politely. Men and their projects. Gives us an excuse to linger. She laughed, unexpectedly. And just like that, the quiet broke. George fixed the step quickly, but he didn't leave. Evelyn, coffee? George, never say no to that. They sat at the kitchen table, steam rising between them. They talked about weather, about town gossip, about the kids. George, hard, letting them go. Evelyn nodded. But harder would have been keeping them from flying. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't ask questions. Before leaving, George hesitated at the door. George, I'll check on that step again next week. Evelyn, smiling, of course you will. Back in Ohio, Ethan began to feel the weight of attention. A teammate's sister, Madison, sat close at team dinners. Madison, teasing. So, you got a girl back home? Ethan, firm. Yeah. Madison. Long distance never lasts. He didn't respond, but the comment stuck. In New York, Clara faced a different pressure. A senior designer, Mr. Harrington, started taking notice. You've got talent, Clara. Stick close to me. The tone made her uncomfortable. She stayed professional. She stayed late. She stayed careful. One night, everything collided. Clara called. Ethan answered distracted. Ethan, sorry, just got out of film review. Clara May, tight voice. You forgot my interview today. Ethan paused. Ethan, I didn't forget. But he had. Silence stretched. Clara May. Sometimes it feels like I'm doing this alone. Ethan, frustrated. That's not fair. They said things they didn't mean. They hung up too quickly. That night, neither slept. Distance didn't just whisper anymore. It knocked. In Maple Ridge, George sat on his porch staring at the stars. In New York, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table with an untouched cup of tea. They both thought of people they loved who were far away, and neither realized how close comfort was becoming. There comes a moment in every long love when distance stops being the problem and fear takes its place. Fear of losing ground, fear of growing apart, fear that the life you're building might not have room for the one you love. For Ethan Walker and Clara May Bennett, that moment arrived quietly, and then, all at once. Mid-season games were brutal. Ethan had been pushing himself harder than ever, trying to prove he belonged, trying to drown out the doubts that followed him from practice to practice. During a packed Saturday game, under roaring stadium lights, it happened. A hard tackle, a sharp twist, a silence that felt louder than the crowd. Ethan stayed down. Walker, don't move! As he was helped off the field, pain radiated through his knee and through something deeper. In the locker room, he sat alone, helmet beside him, staring at the floor. The doctor's words came later. It's not career-ending, but you're out for the season. Out. Just like that. Ethan waited 2 days before calling Clara. When he finally did, His voice was flat. "I'm benched, knees busted." "Oh, Ethan." She wanted to comfort him, but the distance made everything clumsy. "I wish I was there." "Yeah." He pulled away without meaning to. He skipped calls. He shut down. And Clara felt it. Back in New York, Clara May's work began drawing attention. Her sketches were sharp, thoughtful, different. Mr. Harrington called her into his office. "There's a junior position opening. I can recommend you." Her heart raced. Then he added, "But you'll need to stay focused. No distractions." She knew what he meant. That night, she sat on her bed, phone glowing in her hand. She thought about Ethan, about promises, about the cost of dreams. Maple Ridge noticed everything. When George Walker started stopping by Evelyn Bennett's house more often, folks talked. "George got himself a lady friend? Good for him." George and Evelyn pretended not to notice. They shared dinners, walks, laughter. "You always this bossy?" "Only when someone lets me be." They laughed like people surprised by happiness. The call came late one night. Clara had stayed late at work. Ethan had skipped physical therapy out of frustration. "Ethan, talk to me." "What do you want me to say?" "That you still want this." Silence. "I don't know who I am right now." Her breath caught. "So where does that leave us?" Another pause. "I can't hold you back." Tears fell. "You're not holding me back. You're holding my hand." They didn't break up, but the crack showed. That weekend, George visited Ethan at college. They sat on a bench near the field. "Dreams don't always look how we expect, son. I'm scared I'm failing." "You only fail when you quit loving what matters." Ethan swallowed hard. Meanwhile, Evelyn confided in Clara over the phone. "I've been spending time with George. You deserve happiness, Grandma." Evelyn did smile. And in that moment, 2 generations of love stood at crossroads. One learning how to hold on, the other learning how to begin again. Sometimes, life doesn't break you with one big moment. It wears you down with quiet ones, with waiting rooms, with half-finished conversations, with choices that feel heavy no matter which way you turn. For Ethan Walker and Clara May Bennett, this was that season. Ethan's knee healed slowly, too slowly for his liking. Physical therapy rooms smelled like disinfectant and disappointment. Each stretch reminded him of what he'd lost and what he might never get back. He spent more time thinking than moving, about football, about home, about Clara. One afternoon, sitting alone on the practice field bench, Ethan realized something uncomfortable. Football had always been the dream, but it wasn't the only one. That night, he called his parents. "Ethan, I'm thinking about coming home for a bit." Linda didn't hesitate. "Baby, your room's still here." Tom was quieter. "Do what lets you sleep at night, son." George said the least. George. Home's never a step backward. When Ethan returned to Maple Ridge, people noticed. They always did. At the diner, whispers followed him. "He all right?" "Knee injury." But there were smiles, too. Handshakes, familiar nods. Maple Ridge had a way of wrapping its arms around its own, even when they came back bruised. Ethan spent mornings helping his dad and evenings sitting on the porch with George. One night, George handed him a beer and said quietly, You don't gotta be the same man you were when you left. That settled something deep inside Ethan. In New York, Clara May stood at her biggest crossroads yet. Her designs had been selected for an internal showcase, a quiet but powerful opportunity, the kind that decided careers. But the hours were brutal. Late nights, early mornings, pressure thick as fog. Mr. Harrington pulled her aside again. You're talented, Clara, but you seem distracted. She knew what he meant. That night, she tried calling Ethan, straight to voicemail. She didn't know he was home. She didn't know he was healing. All she knew was that silence hurt worse than any argument. A mutual friend posted a photo online. Ethan at the Maple Ridge Diner, laughing, surrounded by familiar faces. Clara saw it between meetings. Her chest tightened. She called him immediately. Clara May, you didn't tell me you came home. Ethan, I just got back. Clara May, looks like you've been there a while. They talked past each other. Old frustrations resurfaced. Clara May, I'm fighting for my future here, Ethan, and I don't know where I fit in yours anymore. Ethan, quiet but wounded. I thought coming home would fix things. It didn't. The call ended unfinished. Back in Maple Ridge, George and Evelyn faced their own challenge. The town had noticed them too. Church lady, smiling tightly. Well, Evelyn, you've been busy lately. Evelyn held her chin high. Yes, I have. One afternoon, George took Evelyn for a drive beyond town, where the cornfields met the sky. I know folks talk. They always do. But I don't want to hide. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached for his hand. Neither do I. They laughed, relief spilling out between them. Ethan sat alone on his porch that night, phone in hand. He replayed Clara's words. He realized something painful but honest. He hadn't told her everything. About the fear, about the injury, about feeling lost. Distance hadn't ruined them. Silence had. He called her. This time, he didn't let it ring out. I should have told you sooner. I came home because I was scared, not because I stopped believing in us. Clara listened, tears falling quietly in her apartment. I don't need you perfect. I just need you present. Something softened. Something healed. They didn't fix everything that night, but they stopped running from it. In New York, Clara finished her showcase with shaking hands and quiet pride. In Maple Ridge, Ethan began coaching youth football, discovering a different kind of purpose. And George, standing beside Evelyn on her porch one evening, said with a smile, Funny how life gives us new beginnings right when we think it's done. She squeezed his hand. Funny. There are moments in life when you finally understand that success isn't about how far you go, but about what still matters when you come back. For Ethan Walker and Clara May Bennett, this was that moment. The showcase room in New York was quiet, in the way important rooms always are. White walls, focused faces, measured breaths. Clara May stood beside her designs, hands clasped, heart racing. Each piece told a story of where she came from, of resilience, of love stretched across miles. Mr. Harrington studied them carefully. Then he looked at her. These feel honest. She nodded. They are. Later that afternoon, her phone buzzed. An offer. A real position. Not because she compromised, but because she stayed true. She stepped outside into the noise of the city and smiled through tears. The first person she called was Ethan. Back in Maple Ridge, Ethan had found something unexpected. Coaching the town's youth football team gave him purpose he hadn't known he was missing. Watching young players learn teamwork, discipline, and confidence reminded him why he loved the game in the first place. One evening, George watched from the sidelines. "You look at peace, son." "I think I am." That night, Ethan made his decision. He called Clara. "I don't need the biggest stadium. I need the right life." There was silence on the line. Then Clara laughed through tears. "I was hoping you'd say that." Maple Ridge hadn't seen a wedding like George and Evelyn's in years. The church filled early. The town showed up. Evelyn wore a simple cream dress, her silver hair glowing. George stood tall, eyes bright with emotion. When George took Evelyn's hand, his voice trembled. "I thought my best years were behind me. Turns out, they were just waiting." Laughter, tears, applause. Two lives finding each other late and loving deeply. Ethan and Clara sat together, fingers intertwined. "Next time it's your turn." They both laughed, nervous, hopeful. After the wedding, Clara stayed. At first, just a visit, then longer. She worked remotely, designed at the old Bennett kitchen table, found inspiration in fields, fabric, and familiarity. One evening, Ethan took her back to the old truck, parked under the same stars. "Remember when we promised not to let the world decide for us?" "We kept that promise." He reached into his pocket. Not a ring, just a folded piece of paper. A lease for a small place near town. "I want to build something with you." She smiled. "I already am." Life didn't turn out exactly how they imagined. It turned out better. George and Evelyn found love again. Ethan found purpose beyond applause. Clara found success without losing herself. And Maple Ridge watched it all with quiet pride. In a town where the cornfields meet the sky, where love is patient and dreams are brave, they learned that sometimes the greatest journeys don't take you away. They bring you home.